designers often live in like this feast or famine world because they're so busy doing the work. And then one day they look up and they're like, oh, the work dried up.
Welcome to the Interior Designer Podcast, real-world business education for interior designers. In today's episode of the Interior Design Her podcast, we've got Gina Cotner, founder of Athena Executive Services. Way too many interior designers spend their days answering emails and balancing budgets. You know you need help, but you're not sure if you need a virtual assistant, an executive assistant, or what the difference even is. During our chat, Gina explains why designers get stuck in feast or famine cycles and how the right assistant becomes a business partner who helps you avoid that trap. If you're sick of doing paperwork every night, you're going to love my interview with Gina Cotner. So, let's get to it.
Gina, can you tell me a little bit about yourself and your journey of how you started your own business and how Athena Executive Services came to be?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about where do you start this story? How far back do you go? And I will say that I was in corporate America and I left corporate America about 20 years ago. So I was in my early 30s. I'm glad I was there. I was there in my late 20s, my early 30s. I was at IBM, Big Blue, learned a ton of great practices. And then I said, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur because I want to be free. I want to be in control of my time. And I'm going to control my destiny and all of that. So off I went and I worked for myself. I was a solopreneur and I had all kinds of little businesses. I was a business coach and I was a life coach. And I would have these temp jobs on the side to make sure I could still pay my bills. And I was a hospitality consultant. And then I was in the middle of a divorce. And it was not going well financially, and I got kind of scared. Thought we were going to lose this home, and it was headed toward foreclosure. And I just said, I just need a job. Like I can no longer have my ability to pay bills be dependent upon whether or not I sign this next contract. I just need a job. I want to show up somewhere. I want somebody to pay me. I'm going to go home and just keep it simple. And I was on Facebook, I don't know, one day, 15 years ago or so. And there was this woman I knew and she was looking for an executive assistant. And I was like, I know her. I think I could do that. I think I have that skill set. That doesn't sound too complicated. And so I applied and became her executive assistant. And she was a CEO of a small recruiting firm. And I went to the office every day for about a month. And then she sold the office, or the lease ended, and we were suddenly all working from home. So there I was, an executive assistant working from home for a CEO. And I loved it. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then that business fizzled out and just got smaller and smaller. She didn't need me anymore. And so then I went looking for another CEO to support. And one of my friends said, yeah, my CEO could really use you. And I said, great. So I start working for this guy named Darren. And she comes back to me the next month and says, I need you too. So if you could plan next quarter to come be my EA, that'd be great. And I said, I don't have any more bandwidth. I'm full. And she said, no problem. Just find me somebody like you. And now the seeds are getting sown, right? And she said, you should probably consider opening this as a business. And I was like, no. I've been an entrepreneur before. I am not doing that. She goes, all right. So we put our heads together and we find somebody that we both know. And we said, this woman, Dorian, would be great. But she's young. She's had one job her entire adult life. And I said, if we pluck her out of her job, you've got to be a great person to work for. And I'll coach her. So I coached. They paid me to coach her. And we turned her into an executive assistant. And this woman, Tiffany, said, when are you going to open this as a business? And I said, I'm just not. And then finally, a third time, she came back and said, all right, the guys in sales spend way too much time on administrative low-level work. It's ridiculous. You need to find me somebody else, and you need to get over yourself and open this as a business. And so I finally did. And that was almost 10 years ago. That was 9.5 years ago. And I was an EA along with Dorian and along with Allison. And the three of us were these three EAs. We worked for this one company until I started finding other clients and other EAs and started pairing them together, and then worked myself out of a job and became a business owner, basically.
So you still kept your foot in there, being an EA yourself, to make sure you had that income coming in as well.
I did for a while, yeah, and that was a huge leap when I finally said, "Okay, I'm gonna run the business, and I'm gonna manage and coach and train and develop executive assistants." And it was a long time before I myself had an EA, so it was a very interesting journey.
Yeah. And how long had you been working for that CEO?
By the time I opened the business, maybe 6 months, and I just kept
Right.
working for him for maybe another 6 months, and then I turned him over to somebody else on my team who I trained and developed.
I wonder what that was like from their point of view. Like, is that stressful? Like they know you, and now you're like, you want to change, and
Yeah. In general, that is very, I will say now, as the owner of a firm with a bunch of EAs, that is the one thing we don't want to have happen. We don't ever want that to happen. And sometimes it does. So we're always prepared for it because we know from a client point of view, it is stressful. It can be disheartening, right? You've created this relationship with somebody. Maybe they've been your executive assistant for 2 years, and maybe something happened in their life. Maybe they got some big job offer, and then it's on us as an agency to make that great for the client. And we have a lot of systems in which we do, if we have to do turnkey. We're very compassionate. We just cannot.
well, I mean, like you said, when you first started doing it, it was, you know, they were finding that they were spending too much time on low level tasks, and they needed somebody to come in and. But I'm sure the relationship and the job relationship and the personal relationship change over time, right? Like you start doing other things that you weren't doing at the start, and so you would become quite embedded with that company.
You do. And sometimes with that human and with that family, especially when it's somebody who's got control of the purse strings and they don't have to, you know, at a great level, you use an assistant for everything in your life that is not the highest and best use of you. Now, if you're a manager who's only spending company funds, right, you're probably not going to use those company funds to have your assistant help you plan your mother's 70th birthday party. That wouldn't be appropriate. But there's a lot of people who are our clients that over time, yeah, you are embedded in the company, but also in their family, right? You know when their mother's 75th birthday is coming, and you make sure that all it's going for the company and for the family. Things like that.
Trust there between those two people. So
Yeah. Yep. You
yeah,
bet. But when career EAs are good at their job, they also can come in and just pretty quickly become what I call your shoulder to shoulder partner, because they're for you as a human and they know you as a human. You have a family, you have business, you have bills, you have kids. Kids got to get to soccer practice. They need to get to the doctor's office, but you also need to get to the gym. And like there's a whole human to take care of. And good EAs will just jump in and do that.
I mean, we all think we're special snowflakes and completely unique, but we all have lives.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe we can slide over a little bit to focusing on interior designers specifically. I'm curious when a designer reaches out to you and your company, what they're asking for, and maybe what they actually need, and how that kind of changes possibly over time.
Yeah. Well, when they first reach out to us, they end up talking with this great woman named Jennifer Tracy, who's our client care manager. And they're usually is just they're simply overwhelmed, right? When they first reach out to us. I was talking to Jennifer about it, and she's like, "Yeah, you can even hear it in their voice. You can see it in their emails. They're just in it, right? They're in the thick of it. They've got multiple projects in motion. They've got clients calling. They've got vendors emailing, and they have creative ideas bouncing around in their head. So things are chaotic. Inbox is overflowing. Calendar is a puzzle. They're spending more time putting out fires than actually designing, you know. And what they're craving is some kind of structure and some kind of path forward that gets them back to being able to do what they love to do, which is design work. And the thing is, they know it could be better, but they're kind of, whether they're an interior designer, no matter who they are, everybody's like, I know this could be better, but I can't get off the rat wheel long enough to go design something that's better. If I could get systems in place and give away the lower level work and have somebody who manages all the pieces, then, they're like, gosh, maybe I could actually take a breath and focus on the creative vision that got them into this business in the first place.
Right.
So in the beginning, it's putting out fires, which might be the inbox, the calendar, the invoices that are just sitting in draft form that should have gone out 2 weeks ago. And that's in the beginning. I'd say, the first month or two, that's what that's like, is getting the systems together or working with the systems that already exist or improving them or just building them from scratch. There are no systems. So that's something that's happening for the EA. And then slowly, one little part of the business after one other little part of the business starts to feel a little more sane. Like, okay, the emails that actually need my attention are in a folder, or we've created a system in which that's what I need to look at, not sit on my phone in bed in the morning and scroll through the inbox and figure out what needs me. No, EAs will create great systems for that. And yes, it absolutely evolves from put out the fires, create systems, to fast forward 6, 9, 12 months. Now all of a sudden they know you, they know your systems, they know your voice, and you trust them, and they know your clients. And they've been holding that client's hand with you on that long 9-month project. And now Sally, the client, almost wants to hear from the EA more than from you, because that's who they're used to. Like, oh yeah, Allison said I need to sign that thing. Allison said I need to make that decision. Allison said we need to get back to that vendor. Okay, I'm going to do that. So that, the designer can just be doing what they need to do.
Right. And I mean, designers, like just about any small business, you don't start a business because you want to do the accounting and all of that stuff. You've got a passion or an interest or a skill in something, and you want to bring that to the world. But then you realize pretty quickly that that's such a small part of the business, and all the rest of it is like huge.
It is. And it's true whether you're somebody who loves to bake pies, whether you're a massage therapist, whether you're a financial advisor, you're passionate about that thing. You are probably not passionate about invoicing. But that's one of the funnest things about having an assistant, is that they are. Like, an interesting phase that clients go through is like, I don't even want to give this away because this project sucks. Like, I wouldn't want to do this research for some new CRM. I don't want to get back to IRS. Well, IRS in the United States, right? But I don't want to get back to some government entity where I'm going to have to wait on hold forever. I feel bad turning this over. No, good EAs don't care. They love it. I hated social media when I started. I was like, do I have to manage my social media? My EA loves social media. She just like, send me videos, send me pictures, Gina. I'm going to turn it into great stuff. I was like, oh, hallelujah. So over time, you find your executive assistant's superpowers, and you'll be amazed what they love to do that, yeah, you hate to do. That's not your specialty.
So if I'm a designer who, maybe I'm thinking of this, but this the cost I'm going to have to incur. Best case scenario, what is their life going to look like? What is their business going to look like 6 months, 8 months down the road, so that they can justify that cost in their brain?
Yeah. Well, you imagine if you traded out, let's say, 10 hours a week worth of work that you do that is not the highest and best use of you. Now, what are you going to do with that 10 hours? And that's really where the answer lies, because you're buying yourself time. Now you're going to get all kinds of other benefits you weren't expecting. Like, some projects and work are going to get done better than you would have done them. It's just not your specialty. I'm amazed at what my team produces. I would never have produced it. But in terms of return on investment, it really is, you think about invoicing that's getting done late, payments that are coming in late, payments processes that are not going well, how much time you waste in processes aren't going well, how much more networking you think you should do, but you're not getting to it. So you've got to think both all the stuff I want to give away, which sounds so luxurious, but now what are you going to do? If we gave you 5 to 10 hours a week, how would you spend it? Because if you're going to spend it spinning your wheels where you are already spending your wheels, well, there's going to be no ROI. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to go to one networking event a week and I'm going to keep up with my architect contacts, or I'm going to keep up with my different business contacts that I have. I'm going to take one person to lunch. What are you going to do to then bring in money a year from now, right? Because designers often live in like this feast or famine world because they're so busy doing the work. And then one day they look up and they're like, oh, the work dried up. Oh, I got to go back to networking now. No, you should have been networking the whole time, but you couldn't. So that's where the ROI, I think, comes in, is you've got the EA who can also look out ahead for you and go, okay, it's now time to go to, ramp up your networking, because these 3 projects are now starting to wind down. And if we don't start seeding, get some little seeds out there and start planting and nurturing our connections, in 3 months, we're going to have no work. So a partner who can look out there with you also makes a difference. So anyway, there's lots of facets to how you answer the return on investment, but it's such a good question that you want to confront, because it just sounds like, oh, I'm going to buy myself time. Oh, that's going to be fabulous.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
I could
what are you going to go
Well,
ahead?
what are you going to do with it? Exactly. What are you
Yeah.
going to do with it?
And for some people, yeah, you should go networking. For some of you, you should take 2 days off. That's what you should do. You should go sleep. You should go take your family on a 3-day weekend. I mean, I'm not saying everybody should be like looking for the next client. Some of you need to get to Pilates or yoga, or, go for a walk with your friends. You got to do other things that will feed you and fuel you.
And would it be right to say that an experienced EA would kind of be almost like a Sherpa to guide that new client, that new designer client through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Because truly, they want your whole life to work, and they know what's most important is, okay, we got to if I'm going to pay you, Mr. or Ms. EA, we better be making more money. And they know that, right? They know we've now added to you a bill to pay. So they need to, help you with that. But over time, they really do just want your life to work, and your life working includes, that you see your family to the degree that you want, and that you're taking care of yourself. And they're the ones who know that you keep putting in your calendar, you're going to go to yoga, and you don't go. And then that for them gives them some access or a view into, I see, Jeanette keeps not doing what she really wants to do because she keeps getting bogged down here. Okay, that's a clue to me, the EA, to go, I need to start grabbing more of that work. There's like this push pull that happens, right? Designers and clients, they need to push work to us, but REAs also pull it.
Definitely. You brought up systems and processes and all that good stuff, and I'm a big operations nerd myself, but I can see that a designer who might say, well, can't I just automate some of this rather than paying for a human being to help me with this? Right? There's a difference.
Yep, there is. And it's not either or, it's both and. Unless you want to go geek out on making that automated system work really well. We could talk about AI for days, but let's just back up 10 years when everybody started using like a calendaring link. And then people were like, oh, the world of executive assistants are going to go away because there's these calendar links. No, people use them so awfully. So it's like, I said to somebody once, I said, do you know I booked with you on this calendar link, and then I got this email, and then do you know I got this, and then do you know that it's had this in it, and this link came in, and they go, yeah, it's just what it does. And I was like, no, it's not just what it does. It's what you're tolerating the software doing, because you haven't gotten in there to go learn it and make it really look like you, sound like you, be your brand, have your look, and have it add. Well, I understand. I don't want to do that. I would delegate that to my team in a hot minute. So if you want to get into technology and make it work for you, great. If you don't, somebody has to be managing all of that. And yes, use AI, and your assistants better be using AI. But does that work product that they just produced out of Chat GPT, does that sound like you? Does that look like you? Does that have your feel? Does that have your vibe? Okay, well, somebody needs to get in there and manage that. So that's the both and, just take a CRM, for example. Who's going to keep that accurate and up to date? And that thing's only as good as up to date as it is up to date.
Right. And if we're looking at interior designers, business owners who are already, as you said, head down, trying just to work. Now you're like on top of that. Now I have to figure out how to properly use this software to its, best advantage. Like, where am I finding that time to do that?
Exactly. And you do know you need workflows and you need processes, but tools don't, they just don't run themselves. So, and you might have none, in which case that might be your first project for your EA called Help Me Be More Efficient. Or you might have some that you like and you go, all right, I've got this project management software. I don't love it, but we're going to use it for now. And they'll work with it until things can get better.
Right. If I've got software already existing, are your EAs kind of platform agnostic? They'll work with anything, or they say, really, this is better or this is better?
So they will definitely work with what you have, right? Because until they're in it enough to go, this is great. Or, you know what? We should try this other thing. So part of what happens in my firm, and this podcast isn't about my firm, but it's all of our executive assistants also collaborate. So they might, and you might have one of our assistants working for you and they don't love the software, but it's okay. But then they end up in a huddle with a bunch of EAs from our team. And all of a sudden everybody's talking about, oh, what's ClickUp? Oh, what's Monday? Oh, wait, but we're using Asana. Oh, well, what would you use? Well, what don't you like about what's going on that? Oh, well, I'm working with this designer and we keep hating this part. What do you think? So they have in our firm, they have a team they can go back to, and they have a performance coach they can go back to and say, the system's not bad, but it's not great. And they might come back to you and say, listen, not a rush, but here's why I think maybe we want to move. We don't consider ourselves technology experts, but they do use so much software. And, we have 20, 25 of them at any given time. So between all of them, they all have got their hand in some piece of software. So it won't be surprised if an EA came back to you and said, let's shift gears, but they won't come in like that. Like, I use this and this. And so Douglas, we're going to switch over to ClickUp because that's what I use. No, they won't do that.
Okay, fair enough. When I was talking to a couple of designers about this upcoming podcast interview with you, and they said, oh, virtual assistant. Yeah, I've had a virtual assistant before. And I said, well, no, it's an executive assistant. And then they replied, well, what's the difference? And then I went, and I kind of could explain it, but not really. So I'm going to ask you that question. What is the difference between a virtual assistant and an executive assistant?
Well, there is no truth about it. The great craziness of the virtual assistant industry right now, it's just the wild, wild west, right? Everybody is one, can say they are one, and can name themselves whatever they want. So I just made this up, and other people use this term too. It's not like I coined the term, but when I opened the business, I said, I want to provide for business owners a high caliber executive assistant, somebody that is like that person that's on the 40th floor of the downtown high rise, sitting outside the office of the CEO, CMO, CTO, CIO, whoever. I want people to be able to have that caliber of executive assistant, but in a part-time function. So there's a lot of small business owners need somebody with a high level of business acumen and polish and professionalism and confidence, but they only need that person 10, 15 hours a week. Great. So that's why I use the term executive assistant. Now, it's not to say that somebody who calls themselves a VA is not that. They might be. They just might use the term, I'm a VA. Okay. But more and more, as this industry has now blown up, post-COVID, COVID just blew it up even more. It was already on a fast track. I would say what's starting to become more and more the common notion is when you say VA, people think of somebody in the Philippines who's doing tasks for you for $6 an hour. And there is a place for that. And that's a big part of the industry. But you also have a high caliber individual who's working for themselves, sitting at their dining room table in Calgary right now, that would be perfect for you. They're going to charge a lot less than a US based agency, I'll tell you that. They're going to charge more than the Philippines, and they'd be perfect for you. But you have to go find them. So, our firm is a US based agency. So we're like a top shelf, expensive product in some senses. But in the other sense, you get a high caliber product and you don't need them 40 hours a week. So there's no right answer, but that's how I think of the difference. I mean, there are also executive assistants, that make $150,000 a year. That's their profession, and they are amazing at that. And they would not, they wouldn't ever want to be considered VAs. So I think the answer is going to be different 3 years from now, and then another 3 years from now.
Probably. Of some of the, and not just specifically to people who are doing assistant type work, but all sorts of different service providers for interior designers. I have found that the founders who come from a corporate background tend to have a slightly different point of view than somebody who didn't. And it's just they've experienced things that other people haven't. And so they're saying, well, yeah, we could do it at this level, but when I was working with the C-suite executive, they expected it to be at a certain level. And so that's what and that's kind of what I'm hearing from you as you describe your business, like from day one, is that you were going to provide a certain level, not a $6. And like you said, I mean, that for certain tasks, that's totally acceptable. Right. But if you've got an executive assistant working with a designer who has more of a luxury clientele, how they interact with those homeowners also, it's important.
Yeah. And I would say luxury or not luxury. Any client, if you want your assistant to do any client facing work, that better be right on brand, right? That better have that client be like, oh, I'm loving this experience. Next time I need something, I'm coming back to this person. So the ability, how much communication you want with your clients, and that is the whole key, isn't it? I mean, it all comes down to how well we communicate with our clients, whether it's via text, via email, via a phone call, via a cup of coffee. That's pretty hard to replicate, even the really, really good ones. And I get messages from overseas and they're pretty darn good, but I can tell, no, I wouldn't want that email. It's close, but it's not quite on brand for us.
Interior designers, I mean, there's certain businesses that are similar, but we've got very long project lives, right? I mean, if you're doing a whole home renovation, 18 months is not out of the realm of possibilities. How does an EA deal with that, right? I mean, being embedded with their designer for up to that length of time.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful, wonderful time for the EAs, I'll tell you, because you, the designer, but also the EA, really get to know the client, and that's where a high level EA can really be a game changer because as the EA learns your voice, your preferences, how you like to communicate. So then and your assistant can then step in and it can feel very seamless for the client. And sometimes the executive assistant is speaking as themselves, hi, I'm Jolene's assistant and wanted to follow up on XYZ. Sometimes they might speak as you, as a principal designer, let's say, making sure that the client experience is consistent, it's professional, it's personal. And over time, those relationships deepen until your assistant can become the reliable point of contact who keeps that communication flowing, keeps the timelines on track, keeps the clients feeling cared for. Again, also that the designer can focus on the work that they really want to do and that they are the best at,
Right.
quite frankly.
And yeah. And you mentioned earlier about, an EA maybe gently pushing a designer to make better use of the time that they have now freed up by the EA taking on different tasks. Interior design is largely residential design is largely referral based, and there can be for some firms ups and downs, dry spells. How can an EA help when that happens? I mean, even if they see it coming that they're not doing enough marketing or whatever but when that dip happens, is there things an EA can do?
Well, I think this is where sometimes your EA becomes a bit of a business partner, which is really ideal, right? I think your EA will sit down with you and say, okay, what's the plan? Now, if the EA has been with you a little while, they will see it coming, right? Like I said before, listen, there's going to be a dip in work. So we've got to now look at your schedule. And yes, I know we got these 3 big projects going, but we also need to figure out when, where, how do you want to market? Now, sometimes that might be that your EA could begin some of it for you. I don't know. It would all start with what you would want to do if there were 3 of you. If you could be designing and networking and sending these messages out via LinkedIn or however you want to do it. Okay, now the EA can look and go, okay, well, what of that could I grab? Now, the EA is not going to go take somebody to coffee, but the EA might go into your LinkedIn account and send messages to these 5 people that you would like to do if you had the time. Or maybe send 20 emails to people who have been past clients. Maybe they're the ones who make sure that on the birthday or the anniversary of that great project, that person is getting a message or a note. The EA can use systems to keep you top of mind for people. Now, we would start with what other system you have now. If you have none, then it's like, okay, well, let's start brainstorming. How do you think you best want to market and network? And then the EA can look and see what they can do. The EA is going to do, what they can do from their dining room table. Right.
Fair enough. Let's say an EA starts working with our theoretical designer. How long typically before that designer might see, this is working out? I'm seeing some results. How long does that take?
I think you're going to see something in a couple of weeks, frankly. You're going to see something. You're going to be like, oh, okay. Wow, she really does manage that. I really don't actually have to go look at that anymore. Wow, that's kind of miraculous. But over time, I would say, you think about how many questions you're going to answer for your brand new EA in the first 30 days, and you're not going to answer those. They're going to start a file on you, right? And they're going to know your preferences of all kinds of things, right? Window or how do you want to pay for these things? And how do we pay for those things? And when this person emails, what is your standard response? When we get an initial inquiry from somebody, what is my initial response? There's just so many things in the first 30 days that you're never going to talk about again. So by the end of the first month, you're going to start to see things shift. I'd say by the end of 90 days, you're living in a different world.
That's amazing. So that first month is a lot of question and answer and a learning process.
Right. And we are dancing with how well you delegate. So you might be a master delegator and you've got your list and you're ready to go and it's day one and you're just throwing us the house and everything but the kitchen sink. Other people, we've got to say, it's okay. Just give me that. It won't hurt. I promise. Like sometimes we've got to reach in and say, listen, I got into your inbox. I see 10 of these things. I can handle that. Sometimes we've got to pull and sometimes you got to push, but we don't know how much of a good pusher you are till we get in that dance with you. So that's what the beginning stages look like. And there's a lot of setup. How often are we going to talk? What software are we going to use to communicate? What is your best? How do you want to be communicated with? What meetings do you need me to be a part of so that I can arrange around that? When you're working with anybody who's, virtual or fractional, you've got to take into account they probably have other clients. So you want to work out, okay, if you're going to hire somebody, say 15 hours a week, do you care when they work? It might be like, yeah, I need you in the Monday meeting every Monday at 10 a.m. We've got to have you there and we've got to have you here. In between there, I don't care when you work. Or you know what? I'd really like you to work in the mornings. That's so important to me. 2 hours every morning, please. Other people are going to say, I don't care, work on Sunday. So there's working out, how are we going to partner together? And all your preferences. You can't imagine how many preferences you have until somebody starts asking you, or you start doing things and they go, oh, you want it done that way? And I go, oh yeah, I guess I do.
Yeah. It's funny. I would, prior to having this conversation with you, I would have assumed that everybody who contacts you is like super excited and like about wanting this EA. But I kind of think that there's definitely going to be some, maybe not skepticism's the right word, but hesitancy or a little bit of fear and being able to let go.
It's huge. It's huge. And you're right. Some people are so excited and they're just ready to roll. And when people talk to Jennifer, our client care manager, she will tell them even before they start, she'll just say, start your list. Just start your list of what you're going to give away, right? What you think you're going to give away. But it's just everybody has a different level of trust. So some people are going to start off with very low level things as kind of an audition. Like, let's see how you do. I'm going to give you this low level stuff. That's fine. If you want to build your own comfort level that way, when I coach people, I coach them. I say, listen, give people more than you think they can handle. Because the EA is going to tell you, listen, I don't know how to do that. I'm going to go watch 3 videos. Or they're going to say, you've now given me 20 things to do, but I'm only working for you 10 hours a week. So I'm going to get these 3 done by Friday. And then on Monday, we'll talk about what the next 3 are. And you might say, oh, no. Let me tell you what the top 3 are. Okay, good. You tell me. Right. So it's, we see the whole gamut. What surprised me in the early days is every now and then somebody would come to us and say, like they're getting coached by their business coach or somebody in their industry who's telling them you need to have an assistant. And they trusted that person so much they would hire us and they would go, I don't know what to do. My coach told me I need an assistant. And I was always shocked by that because I thought what you thought, like, well, aren't they just chomping at the bit to unload a bunch of stuff? It's more like they aren't chomping at the bit, but they know they should be. And they're like, I just don't know where to start. And I know I should give it away. So help. And that's fine. We can be like, all right, well, then we start interviewing them. And then again, we just start taking.
And I'm sure the business owners that your assistants work with, they all have different styles of how they're going to delegate, different abilities to be able to let go. What was the term somebody said to me? Dump and run. And I thought that
Yes.
was hilarious, right? And then they're like, yeah, that was somebody who was in the business, and they were like, that's not something. So could you explain what that is? What dump and run is?
Yeah, it's funny. I lead workshops called Delegate and Elevate, and teaching people how to delegate and how to hold people accountable. And every now and then I use that phrase. I'm like, yeah, one way to delegate is you could dump and run, which is like, here's everything I need. And you just walk away as if you're no longer a part of the project. And that's weak. delegating, I would say. Strong delegating is I am going to give somebody a lot of work to do, but I'm available. I'm available for questions. I'm curious what questions you have. I'm still accountable. So I'm not abdicating my responsibility. It's my firm, right? I'm ultimately accountable for your performance. So I want to be on your team. When I delegate to somebody, I delegate. And then I say, this is now yours. However, I now work for you. What can I provide? What questions do you have? What do you need? Dump and run is, well, I told you to do that. Why isn't it done? Like as if you're no longer a part of the end result. And yeah, over time, you're going to become less and less and less and less a part of the end result getting produced. But certainly in the early days, you want to be very available for questions, concerns, because if you're not, there's the other problem with dump and run. People can then be afraid to come back to you with questions.
Right.
And you don't want people to be afraid to come back to you with questions, because what's going to happen is you're going to say, do these 3 things by Friday. Then on Monday, they're going to tell you all the reasons why they didn't get them done by Friday. And something not done plus a good reason does not equal it getting done. So I need to know ahead of time that we're not on track for that task to get done. So I could do something about it. I mean, I was around before the EA came around. I was solving all the problems myself. If I know there's a problem, just tell me. I promise you, I can figure it out. I don't want to, but sometimes that's my prerogative. If I need that done by Friday and you can't do it, tell me. But no harm, no foul, no shame. If it becomes an environment in which it's a problem to come to you with problems, they're never going to come to you with problems. You're never going to be able to work it out together.
Right. Would it be right to assume that, I mean, especially if I'm working with an experienced assistant, that if there is a problem with communication, it's probably me, right? It's probably my style, right? Like if they've worked with half a dozen different people and we're still not connecting, maybe I need to look at myself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And on our team, REA will go back to their performance coach. Everybody has a performance coach. They talk to their performance coach 2 or 3 times a month. And odds are, if there's a communication problem, they go to the performance coach and say, listen, things are, I don't know what to do with Joe. And oftentimes they will get coached and they'll talk through, how are we going to talk to Joe? Because Joe's our client, right? We want Joe to be happy. But there's some way that client Joe is not communicating well. But we also don't consider that Joe's problem. I mean, Joe's just doing what Joe does everywhere in life. It's our job to muster the courage. And this is why it's worth paying for a high caliber assistant, because a high caliber assistant will come in and have the courage and the professionalism to say, Joe, listen, the way we do it is just not working. So let's talk about it. How did this work? You like text, but you hate text, and you keep wanting to do blah blah blah. It doesn't really work for you. My kids at school, but like have the courage and the professionalism to work it out. Weird. I don't know. Communication's always a two-way street, right? Nobody's got the wrong
Yeah.
communication style.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, we're not, when I take my car to the mechanic to be worked on, they hook it up to the computer and they read all the sensors and they can tell me, more or less this is wrong and this is fine. Human beings aren't like that. There's no computer to hook us up to. So I was wondering when a business owner starts working with you, is it straight to the EA, or is there kind of a process in between where they deal with, the company first and like, these are expectations. This is what, for, for what you're paying, this is what you're going to get and all that kind of stuff before they meet the EA?
Yes and no. So one thing that's I think really unique about us, we do a lot of secret shopping in the industry, and I don't know that anybody else in the industry does this, which is we say, listen, we're going to give you the best we think we have for you, and we set up what's called a meet and greet, and you get to meet your potential EA and say, yeah, I agree. Now, 95% of the time, everybody agrees. The EA agrees, yeah, I want to work for you. And you're like excited and you go, yeah, I want to work for them. And once those two parties say yes, then we send out contracts.
Okay.
But so we call it not doing arranged marriages. So we, you get to sign off essentially on it. And it's a little bit of a crazy process for us because we haven't signed you yet. And yet it's a one-on-one conversation. We're not there making sure this last call with the prospective client goes well.
Wow.
But we are also like, listen, we have high caliber talent. And if they can't coherently be on a great call with you on camera and give you the experience that they're a high caliber EA worth $55 an hour, then we've done something wrong. But when I look back on it after a couple of years, I thought, Gina Cotner, you are crazy. You are leaving the last step of the sales process in the hands of your staff. But that it has really worked, and it's become kind of a unique thing about us. Now, before then, you have had a short call with Jennifer, who's our client care manager, just to see, like, are we the right? And if we're not, if she can tell, like, listen, you're not ready for us yet, we have recommendations. We'll send you to some other people. Let's say you say, okay, yeah, this sounds good. What do we do now? Jennifer will send a questionnaire out to prospective clients. And the questionnaire is for the clients to really think through help them process what they're trying to process anyway, which is, what am I going to give away? How much do I give away? Should I get an EA now? Should I get an EA 3 months from now? I'm about to go on vacation, or about to have this thing, or all that stuff people are working out. We put in a questionnaire form, and then Jennifer will have about a 45-minute conversation with you, just a complimentary consultation session to go over your specific situation. So that's all you've really had ahead of time. And you can ask whatever, we have a new client handbook we have various things you can use, but it's usually a couple calls with Jennifer. And then we set you up for a meet and greet, because some people are like, I want to start next week. And some people are like, I need one, but I don't know when I want to start. And so then Jennifer helps them kind of suss out, like, okay, given all you have going on, and given our pipeline of staff, and given where you're at, let's align on a start date of September 20th or something like that. But that's it. And then after that, it's you and your EA. But behind the scenes, we're like the ducks on the pond with their feet are paddling really fast underwater. We're making sure that EA who's working for you is they're just extra supported in those first few weeks, because you imagine you're dating, right? You're trying to get a relationship off the ground, a partnership off the ground. And it takes something more than it's going to take 30 days from now. So we just make sure that we keep an extra close eye on the partnership in the first few weeks to make sure it's really gelling and it's starting to go in the right direction.
So the EA isn't out there on an island by themselves.
Exactly. And that's frankly what they love about being here. They could be solopreneurs, they could work for bigger agencies, but the people who work for us, that's exactly why they like to work for us, because they have a lot of independence, but they also never feel alone. Like, they always feel like if somebody's got their back. Because the other thing is, why you're paying top dollar is your EA is our problem, not your problem. Your job is to just delegate the house and the kitchen sink. Our job is to know that their grandmother's not well and their dog got hit by a car this weekend and their kid is sick, and the school that their kid is in is now, got a day off on Friday. Like, all that personal human stuff, we tend to that in an amazing way. We do it because it is our brand, but it also keeps you, which some people want to do that, some people don't. It keeps you don't have to. You can just know your EA is very well taken care of. Your job is just deal with you and your business.
Well, this sounds fantastic. So let's just imagine that I'm a designer who is totally excited and want to sign up with you and have you come and fix my junky little business that is that needs help. What would the process be like?
Good. Well, you find us out on our website, most likely. And there's a lot of buttons on there that say learn more now, or, interested in more now, or whatever those buttons say. All buttons lead you to this wonderful woman, Jennifer Tracy, who is sitting in Peoria, Illinois. And you'll have an initial conversation with her for like 15 minutes or so. And then just see if it seems like you want to proceed. And if you do, like I said, she'll give you a questionnaire to help you work through some things. She'll have a consultation session with you, and start to figure out, okay, what are the 3 or 4 main things that would really make a difference in your business and for you. Then behind the scenes, she goes over to Dorian, right? Staff member number 1 from 9 years ago. Dorian runs all the staff and the performance of the staff. So, and Jennifer manages all the clients and the quality control of all the clients. So those two put their heads together almost every day. So Jennifer will go to Dorian and say, listen, I got this designer. Listen, they need this, 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 and this. And Dorian will say, okay, who I think would be best for that is Danielle. And so I'm going to reach out to Danielle and check on her bandwidth. We usually know what everybody's bandwidth is. And we, for the most part, don't give anybody more than 2 clients. It's too crazy making, even if it's only 10 hours a week and 10 hours a week. Being in too many different industries is crazy making. Just your brain, right? It's tough to deal with. So then Dorian will come back to Jennifer and say, okay, I think Stephanie is who we should pair with that person. And then Jennifer will go back to you and say, listen, I'm going to set you up with a meet and greet with Stephanie. And then it rolls from there.
Rolls from there. Okay. Is there anything about your business or EAs working with designers that any questions I didn't think to ask you? Am I missing anything?
Boy, your questions were so good. No, we've gotten to work with a few designers, and it's been really, really great. On the one hand, you're unique, and like you said earlier, I'm not a unique snowflake, right? Every small business owner is drowning. Dreams of being able to do the thing they're the most passionate about. Really not dating the project management plan.
Okay. I guess we'll wrap it up. This has been great. I really appreciate you coming on, Gina. I learned a bunch, and for everybody, I'll make sure to include all the links and phone numbers and emails and all that good stuff so they can get in contact with you.
Great. This has been really great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks very much.
That wraps up my conversation with Gina Cotner from Athena Executive Services. Considering I didn't know the difference between a VA and an EA before speaking with Gina, I learned a lot, and I hope you did too. If today's podcast has got you dreaming of having your very own executive assistant, I've put all of Gina's contact info in the show notes. And as Season 2 of the Interior Design, her podcast, winds down, I've got to tell you that I've got some really great guests scheduled before the end of October. Stay tuned.